the heart of this nation, under skies so blue,
there's a spirit that's stirring, values strong and true.
from the mountains to the prairies, from the cities to the sea, we stand for liberty, for faith and family. We're diving deep into the heart of what we believe.
All right, strap yourselves in for this one, folks, because today we're taking a deep dive into something that's pretty perplexing. It's the Jeffrey Epstein case. And you know, the FBI has been keeping a whole bunch of documents about him under wraps, even though, well, they initially said they would release them.
Yeah, it's a weird one for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone wants to know more about who Epstein was connected to, right?
Right.
And these files, well, they could be a gold mine.
Oh, yeah. They could have all sorts of juicy details about his associates, his finances, the whole 9 yards.
Absolutely. And the timing of all this, well, let's just say it's piqued my interest.
I bet. It's like they're waiting for the right moment or something.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then you've got this connection to James Comey.
Oh, yeah, Comey, former FBI director.
Exactly. Specifically, his daughter, Maurene Comey. She was prosecutor on both the Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell cases.
Whoa. Okay, so the former FBI director's daughter is involved.
Involved is an understatement. She also worked on a case involving Nicholas Tartaglione. Now, get this, he was Epstein's cellmate for a while.
Wait, hold up. So we've got Comey's daughter. She prosecuted both Epstein and Maxwell.
Yep.
And she's linked to this guy, Tartaglione, who was bunking with Epstein. You can't make this stuff up.
It's a lot of coincidences, that's for sure. And some folks, well, they're starting to connect the dots.
I can say why. What are they saying?
Well, Jesse Waters, from Fox News, he's been pretty vocal about it. He's suggesting that Maurene Comey being involved might be the reason the FBI is holding back these files.
Now, that's a pretty bold claim. So is this some massive conflict of interest? Or are we, getting carried away with the conspiracy theories?
Well, to figure that out, we need to understand what could be in these files. We're talking about client lists, financial records, offshore accounts, shell corporations. It's the kind of stuff that could expose serious wrongdoing, money laundering, even worse.
And if those files name names, big names, powerful names, well, then suddenly keeping things quiet makes a lot more sense, doesn't it?
Exactly. This case could reach the very top. The stakes, they're incredibly high.
It's like a house of cards. And then you throw in the fact that Trump himself, during his campaign, promised to release classified documents about Epstein.
Oh yeah, that promise. That throws a whole other wrench into the works.
For sure. It's not just a legal case anymore.
It's political. And it means people might be trying to protect themselves or their friends.
Right. And speaking of protection, what about Attorney General Pam Bondi? She said she was shocked the FBI was holding back on these documents.
Yeah. Bondi's statement is big. I mean, she was surprised they even existed.
So even someone like her, the Attorney General, is in the dark.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how much transparency there really is, even within the Department of Justice.
Okay, so let's recap. We have a high-profile case, missing files, the former FBI director's daughter tied to key players, and a whole political mess swirling around it all. Where do we even begin to unpack this?
Well, I think the best place to start is with the FBI. We need to look at their role in the Epstein case from the very beginning.
All right, let's do it.
Let's rewind back to their initial involvement.
Sounds good to me.
So the FBI, they seized records from a bunch of Epstein's properties, his island, the infamous island.
Oh, yeah, the one everyone's heard about, Little St. James.
Right, Little St. James. And, those records, well, they could have all kinds of stuff about his money, travel logs, even maybe communication records.
You're talking about a potential treasure trove of information, right? But it also makes you wonder, how good was the FBI's investigation, really?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
I mean, they were supposed to be keeping him safe in prison, and, we know how that turned out.
Yeah, his death. Officially a suicide.
But there are still so many questions.
Definitely. And those prison files, they could shed some light on things.
Like maybe they missed something or messed up somehow?
Right. Security lapses, that kind of thing. Were there any?
Makes you think, right? If the FBI couldn't even keep him safe in a high-security prison, how can we be sure they did a good job investigating?
That's a question a lot of people are asking. And it brings us back to those missing files. What if they have information that points to a darker explanation for Epstein's death?
You're going down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole.
Yeah, maybe a little.
But honestly, the more we learn about this case, the harder it is to just dismiss those ideas.
I get it. It's important to be careful. But we also got to keep an open mind.
Follow the evidence, right?
Exactly. Even if it leads to something, well, something uncomfortable.
So missing files, suspicious death, a web of powerful connections.
It's a puzzle.
With half the pieces missing.
Yeah. And Jesse Waters, the guy who brought up the Maurene Comey connection, well, he also pointed to some other key elements in the case.
Oh, like what?
Well, he talked a lot about those banking records, the ones seized by the FBI.
You mean the ones that could trace the money, find those shell corporations?
Exactly. And uncover those hidden assets. It could blow the whole thing wide open.
Oh, yeah. And then there's that plea deal, right? The one from 2008, the non-prosecution agreement.
That sweetheart deal. The one that let him avoid real prison time. Yeah.
Just seems so outrageous.
People were furious, you know?
Like he was getting special treatment because he was rich and powerful.
Exactly. So it makes you think, did that 2008 deal influence things now? Was it all part of a bigger plan to protect Epstein and his friends?
It's a good question. And one more thing. Those Bureau of Prisons files. The ones from when he was at the Metropolitan Correctional Center.
Oh, yeah. Those could be huge. Information about how he was treated in prison?
Visitors, surveillance footage, maybe even details about what happened before she died.
Exactly. Statements from the guards, logs of everything. Those are valuable pieces of the puzzle.
So basically, we have all these files, financial records, prison logs. They could unlock the mysteries of the Epstein case.
But will we ever see them? That's the question.
I know, right? It's not looking good. I mean, why are they still holding back? It just makes you wonder if someone's trying to hide something from the public.
What are they so afraid of?
Think about it. What if those files expose some really powerful people?
Oh.
People who were involved in his crimes or part of a cover-up.
Reputations would be destroyed.
Careers ending, maybe even criminal charges.
So yeah, it wouldn't be surprising if there were some powerful forces working to keep those files secret.
It's kind of scary when you think about it. But, let's shift gears for a second.
Okay.
How do you think the public's view of this case has changed over time?
Well, at first it seemed like a pretty simple case. A rich guy taking advantage of young women.
Yeah.
But as we learned more, started digging deeper, it became clear that this was a way bigger, way more disturbing story.
Yeah, it wasn't just about one man.
It was about power and connections, maybe even a huge network of people involved.
A system that let this happen?
And that's what makes this case so unsettling, right? It forces us to think about some really uncomfortable things. Power, privilege, corruption at the top.
It's like, justice isn't always fair. Sometimes it's rigged for the rich and powerful.
Yeah. It makes you question our society, our institutions.
Big question.
Like, how do we hold powerful people accountable?
How do we protect those who are vulnerable?
And how do we make sure that everyone gets justice, no matter how much money or influence they have?
Wow. That's a lot to think about. It's heavy stuff, for sure. But we need to talk about it. This Epstein case, it's not just some scandal. It shows us something really messed up about the world we live in.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And it's not over yet. So where do we go from here? What happens next?
Well, the FBI is definitely feeling the heat to release those files. People haven't forgotten, Everyone wants answers.
They do. And there's this feeling that time is running out. So how do we force their hand?
How do we make them do it?
Well, there's the legal route, right? People could sue to get those documents released, or Congress could get involved.
Oh, yeah, Congress.
Yeah, they could subpoena the files or hold hearings, put pressure on the FBI that way.
And then there's always the wild card, right?
But what?
Whistleblowers.
Whistleblowers.
Someone inside the FBI, or maybe even the Justice Department. Someone who knows what's in those files and decides to come clean.
You're right. Whistleblowers can change everything, especially in a case like this where everyone's watching.
It just takes one person with the right information, and bam, the whole thing explodes.
Absolutely. And don't forget about the media. Journalists, investigators.
Keeping the story alive.
Exactly. They keep digging, keep asking questions.
Yeah.
And that keeps the pressure on.
Right. Public pressure can make a real difference.
It can. The more people who demand answers, the harder it gets for those in power to keep things hidden.
So even though this whole thing feels like a giant mess, there's still hope for finding out the truth.
I think so. The truth has a way of coming out, even in the most complicated cases. And we're not just doing this out of curiosity, right?
No, definitely not.
It's about justice. Justice for the victims.
It's about making sure those who helped Epstein, if anyone did, are held responsible.
It's about stopping something like this from ever happening again.
Exactly. And it's about making sure that no one, no matter how rich or powerful, can escape the law.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So for you listening out there, this is what it all comes down to. You can't just sit back and watch. Stay informed, ask questions, demand accountability. And remember, justice, it's not a one-time thing.
It's a process.
It's ongoing. And we all have a part to play in making sure justice is served.
You also got to think critically, about the information you see and hear. Who's saying it? What's the evidence? Don't just believe everything you hear, even if it sounds right.
We've taken you deep into a really dark and disturbing case today, a case that forces us to confront some hard truths about power and corruption. But it's also shown us that the truth is worth fighting for, even when it seems impossible.
That's a good takeaway.
So keep digging, keep asking questions, and never stop demanding answers, because that's how we make a difference. That's how we make sure something like this never happens again.
In the heart of this nation, under skies so blue, there's a spirit that's stirring, values strong and true. From the mountains to the prairies, from the cities to the sea, we stand for liberty, for faith and family.